Welcome to this month's edition of the FinCrime Connection, brought to you by Jade Third Eye. I'm Jamie Muir. I'm the head of the customer success team, and I've been supporting our clients for over 10 years with this product. Joining me today is Colin Dixon, our CAM certified AML solutions specialist. Colin works closely with clients to help them get the most out of the platform. So Colin, I believe today you'll be focusing on AUSTRAC's change in regulatory approach.
Yeah, that's right, Jamie. I was on leave last month and I missed the ACAMS conference that was in Sydney, which was disappointing because they always put on a good conference. But since then, I've caught up on the speech by Brendan Thomas, the CEO of AUSTRAC, and I think that's very significant, and I think it's worth spending some time to talk about this today. So in his words, he referred to a major evolution in our regulatory approach. And he was talking about a shift from just looking at compliance to focusing on outcomes.
Can you explain what he means by outcomes?
Yeah, well, the whole purpose of the AML regime is about detecting money laundering and other financial crimes, and thereby reducing the level of harm caused by crime and making the country a safer place to live. And so the outcomes should be in line with that purpose. So what that means is that reporting entities should have an AML program that is designed to not just comply, but to actually detect money laundering and terrorist financing and proliferation financing, and then report it to AUSTRAC.
Okay, so the first thing that comes to my mind when you say that, Colin, would be, isn't that already occurring in practice?
Well, yes, it is in some cases. But I think what's happening is that there's lots of reporting entities are focusing on compliance rather than outcomes. So their goal really is to address their risks and do that with a minimum amount of effort. And it's not particularly to detect money laundering. So there's a subtle but a significant difference in those approaches. And I think when we look at it, people's sort of priority order is they want to comply, they want to address their risks. Then once they've done that, they look at minimizing their false positives. And sometimes, but often probably not, they're looking at improving the detection of money laundering. So this speech by Brendan Thomas, it signals that people need to make more attention to the outcomes. And therefore, that means more effort on actually detecting money laundering and other financial crimes.
Okay, so how should reporting entities go about doing this?
So whenever anybody talks about transaction monitoring, there's always this term, it's not a set and forget exercise, that it should be, the rules should be tuned, and it's something that people should do continually. And what I find is that, well, a lot of people don't do that, or they do that very infrequently. And the ones that do they're really focusing on tuning the rules to reduce the false positives, so there's less work for the team to do. So what they need to do now is look at tuning those rules to also detect more money laundering.
Okay, so can you give me an example of what you mean?
Yeah, okay. Let's take a very simple example. Just take a rule with a single threshold, and rules are obviously not always this simple, but hopefully you'll get the idea. So if a reportable cases are well above a threshold, what that means is there's probably lots of alerts that are getting raised that are close to the threshold that are false positives. So increasing the threshold will reduce the number of alerts. And if you take the other case, you're looking at reportable situations that are close to the threshold. And so that potentially means that you might be missing things that are just below the threshold. So reducing a threshold, you might be finding more reportable cases reporting more money laundering.
Okay, so if I was to flip that on its head and mention, isn't minimizing false positives still important though?
Oh, yes, absolutely. So what we're talking about is it's an and not an or. So people should be looking at detecting more money laundering, and they should be reducing false positives, not kind of one or the other. And they kind of go hand in hand, because if you take the effort to minimize your false positives, it will give you your team more time to focus on detecting money laundering. So yeah, they're combined, they're not exclusive.
Okay, that makes sense to me. So do we know how this will play out in practice?
Well, not entirely yet. So what's happening is that there's rules that accompany the Act, and they're due out in August. So there's recently been completed the second round of consultation, and then we should see the final rules coming out soon. We know the due date for implementing these rules. It's 31st of March for tranche 2 and the 1st of July. Sorry, 31st of March for tranche 1 and the 1st of July for tranche 2. And we know more or less what to expect because we've seen the drafts. There may be some changes, but we've got a pretty good idea what's there. And now we also know AUSTRAC's change in emphasis. So really, we should be thinking about it now. Now, in that speech, Brendan Thomas was saying that by that due date, he's expecting people to have made a good effort to comply. But he's also expecting some lead-in time. So really what he's saying is that it doesn't have to be perfect by that due date, but make a start, have a plan for what you're going to be doing afterwards. And he did make the point that there's no excuses for willful non-compliance. So you really need to be doing something.
Okay, yeah, that's interesting to hear. And I noticed the wording is moving from, well, it's not just from looking at compliance. So the sense of, I should probably say, compliance is still very important.
Yeah, that's right. It's certainly not a signal that people can slack off on compliance. So reporting entities, their first job is to really make sure they're compliant, addressing their risks, all the things that they're doing now, and then add a layer on of looking at trying to detect more money laundering. So if they're not compliant, they should expect AUSTRAC to come down hard if they're not. So when I was looking at this speech on the AUSTRAC website, there's quite a lot of news articles, recent ones about companies that have got various levels of compliance failures, and it's across many sectors.
And is there a common pattern in those cases, Colin?
Well, not really. I guess apart from the obvious that they're doing a bad job. So my observation really is that you shouldn't assume AUSTRAC are looking at bigger companies or different sectors to you. Take the attitude that they've got you in their sights and they're coming after you. And what do you need to do to make sure that if they do look at you, they just pass on by? So this whole speech and approach, it kind of reminds me of the Roosevelt quote, "Speak softly and carry a big stick." So AUSTRAC, they're talking about advising people, helping them, working in partnership with people, some leniency on the introduction of the rules by that due date, and that's all the speaking softly. But just be aware that they do carry a big stick.
I do like that analogy, Colin. That's a good one. So I'm also aware that we've just published an article on our website called 5 Transaction Monitoring Pitfalls That Keep FinCrime Teams Up at Night. I know you want to mention that.
Yeah, I won't talk much about the 5 today, but just recommend that you take a look at it on our website. But there is one that I think it's particularly relevant here. So the pitfall is called viewing vendors as software providers rather than partners. So all software vendors will sell you a tool. And just like any tool, you can use it well or you can use it badly. And it's training and advice that helps you use a tool more effectively. And your vendors are in the position to help you with that. So you know your business, you're the experts in how your business works and the risks of your business. Your vendors know their tool. So work together to get the best outcomes from that. And in this case that we've been talking about today, at J3I, we've been helping people with tuning their rules, reducing false positives, finding more money laundering for many years. So we've got a lot of experience in that area. You have the experience of your business, so let's work together to get good outcomes and keep AUSTRAC happy.
Thank you, Colin. That's very insightful, and I think that's the perfect place to wrap up this edition. Thank you, everybody, for tuning into this month's edition of the FinCrime Connection, brought to you by J3I. You can find everything we've talked about, the blog that accompanies this episode, on our website. As always, if you have any questions, thoughts, feedback, we'd love to hear from you. Please reach out, and we'll be back next month with another update on insights from around the world of financial crime. Thank you so much.